Well, welcome to you if you're coming in on a recorded video. This is a short talk on turning points in spiritual life, or turning points in life generally. And the first part of this is live, so we'll just welcome members who are regular. Alex get the gold tonight. Ari and Connor gets the silver prize. Thank you. Thank you for coming in. I've just come back from traveling, so I'm a little pink. And Satyabhama, Hare Krishna, Udvasaka, Mohini, Lisa. Super to see you all on a Monday evening when you could be doing something much more valuable with your life. Thanks for coming in. Katerina, Mark, Satyabhama. Wow, amazing. I never take you all for granted. I'm very happy that you come and very happy to see you. For a good few weeks now, we've been doing what I call the Vaishnav Catechism. But tonight is slightly different. We're slightly out of sync. Can I ask you whether you can hear? Current viewers, all 13 of you. If the microphone is pinned properly, we should be okay. Deepak, do you want to give me a sound check? Just as I don't take any of you for granted, I don't take my microphone for granted either. Let me know whether it's okay for you. You can hear well, sound is fine. Super. Bit of a sucker. New Facebook profile picture. And Paul, as usual. Well, thanks to you for those who came in on Wednesday. We had a live session on Wednesday. And thank you for coming back again on Monday. Subject tonight is turning points in spiritual life. And this has been my theme over the weekend. And although Udva was there for one of the talks, I hope you'll forgive me for plunging into the same subject again. It does bear repetition, actually. So let me begin where I began before. On Friday, or was it Thursday, I was coming back from London on a train. I get on at St Pancras. Well, I get on at Hammersmith, actually. Get on at St Pancras, the train that is, not the underground. And I go to Radlett. And I get off at Radlett. But this particular day, I don't mind telling you, I was a little bit dozy, and I opened up my Kindle and I was reading, and I promise you, I only closed my eyes for a second. How often do we hear that? I closed my eyes for a second. Officer, I was off the road. Just for a second. Must have been more. The next sound I heard was beep, 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 and the train was closing its doors, and I'd missed my station. And I had to go all the way 8 miles up the track to St Albans and catch another train and all the way back. And my wife had been waiting for me to pick me up at the station, and she doesn't like being kept waiting, but I did tell her. It required on my part, firstly, and here's the philosophical bit, a recognition that I'd made a mistake, a recognition that I needed to turn around, and a willing compliance to do so. Now, I don't know if you've got Google Maps or a sat-nav in your vehicle, but you may have had the experience where depending on the accent that you've got tuned in, where the guide says, turn around when possible, or depending on the program that you've got, make a U-turn as soon as possible. And the first thing that hits me when I hear that, because I do have U-turns prescribed for me from time to time, is that I'll continue and just see if I can get away with it. I don't want to follow these instructions. U-turns are sometimes laborious, or they're dangerous sometimes, so I don't like to do them. But we have to, in order to get back to the track. And of course, you're philosophical people, so this won't have escaped you that we're making a metaphorical comparison to the spiritual path or the philosophical path. And this is called, in Sanskrit language, the ancient Sanskrit language in which we are being trained gradually, it's been called parivartana. Parivartana, to take the roundabout path, to go around, to turn around. Pari means to go around, like we get the word peri, or the Greek word peri, or Latin peri, as in perimeter, to go around. So Sanskrit, it's pari. Perimeter means to go around, to measure around. Pari. Or when Krishna tells Arjuna that he should make inquiries from a guru, pari prashna. Prashna is the question, and pari means to question all around a subject. If you're sitting with a guru, you should ask questions all around the subject from different angles of vision. Parivartana, to make a full turnaround. Now this applies not only to a journey, but it applies to life as well. And I know that you will know what I'm talking about, because each and every one of us, in order to be here tonight, we've made a parivartana. In the life that we had previously, there was a point in life that we came to and we just thought to ourselves, I should be moving in a different direction. I've got some bad habits, I should give them up. I'm with this person, I should give them up. I'm doing a job, I should change my job. Whatever it is. I'm interested in spiritual life, I should, move slowly away from material life and take up spiritual life, whatever it is. But I want to give you some examples. First example that comes to my mind is somebody called John Newton. So we'll give you some Western examples, and then we'll go to the Vedic examples. John Newton was a slave trader, and then he was taking slaves, African slaves, over to the New World, to the West Indies, and his ship was caught in a devastating storm, and he was just bobbing around in the ocean, thinking that A, his life had to make a change, big change, and B, that somehow there was a God who saved him. And he became a religious man after that. And he wrote a song that everybody knows, and it goes, Amazing Grace. Excuse me. Amazing Grace. That's what John Newton wrote. So he was a slave trader, and he changed. Now, I know what you're saying. I know you're already screaming at the screen. You're saying it's not that the slave traders weren't Christians. They believed in Jesus and they carried on slaving, some of them. But his example, being the captain of a slave ship, he underwent a profound change of conscience. That's what we're looking for, this parivartana. Another one, which is a fictional example, of course, and probably my favorite, and if I'm talking to people of a certain age, they'll know what I'm talking about, was just the previous week I was in Rochester, and at one time Rochester was the home of Charles Dickens, who wrote a wonderful book called The Christmas Carol. And the hero of The Christmas Carol is, of course, Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge, and he goes through a transformation of heart in the middle of the night because he's visited by 3 ghosts, past, present, future, but also by the dead ghost, yes. All ghosts are dead. The ghost of his previous former business associate Jacob Marley, who warns him that in life we are making chains for ourselves that we have to wear in the life to come. So this was a preface to what was going to happen that night. And in the morning, he wakes up and he discovers that he's back in the present day and the future has not come yet, and there's time to change his life. And he does. There's a dramatic change around. And Charles Dickens wrote this, of course, because he wanted the evildoers and the bad landlords and neglectful public servants to change. Victorian life was a time when there were a great many changes needed, so Charles Dickens wrote about it. So Scrooge sees the turning point, and his realization, which is a realization, is, I must become a different kind of person. He sees the consequences of his behavior and says, right now, I must change. Now, another good example, still in fiction, and I hope you're making notes, is in a book by Victor Hugo called Les Miserables. You may have seen the play, you may have seen the film, you may have read the book, if you're lucky. And the hero of that is Jean Valjean. And he is a sort of a petty, hardened criminal. He's an ex-convict who gets out and he steals, but then he's forgiven. And such is the power of being forgiven and receiving forgiveness from the person that he stole from. I may be forgetting the details of the story, but that he undergoes a moral revolution. So on the receiving end of compassion, it reveals to him what he has become and what he could become. So the turning point for him is, I have been living wrongly, but I can choose differently. So it's a very good example of parivartana. We could even say hriday parivartana, the change of heart, complete turnaround of the heart. But the best example for us, my dear listeners, best example, is someone called Mrgari the Hunter. Actually, we always say Mrgari. His name is Mrgari. Mrgari. Mrg means animal. Ari means the enemy of. Why was he the enemy of animals? Because he killed them. He was a hunter living in the jungle. And one day Narada Muni, the great traveling sage and saint, came through the jungle. And he saw some animals that had been killed, half killed, and they were flipping and flopping in pain, suffering greatly. And he wondered what sort of person would kill and torture animals. And even then, why would he not kill them outright? Why would he only half kill them? And so eventually the hunter crossed his path and he addressed him. He said, my dear friend, I know that you're a hunter, but why are you only half killing animals? And of course the hunter explained to him that anyone can kill animals, but I show my skill by expertly only half killing them. So this is, from his point of view, it was good logic, but from Narada Muni's point of view, it was causing pain. So as a saint, he tries to get him to do what was one better than half killing animals. And although it's strange to hear as a saint, he said, why don't you kill the animals completely? That's much better. And so Mrgari the hunter said, all right. And this was his first awakening of conscience in the presence of a saint. He agrees that I will kill them completely and I'll stop this half-killing hunting. So then Narada Muni shows him the future for one who is a hunter, and he shows him the hells known as Raurava and Maharourava. There are different hellish places one can go to after this life, where the animals that one has killed comes back to pierce him with their horns, rip him with their claws over and over again. So when he saw that, he agreed that he would be a hunter no more. And then he said, what shall I do? And Narada Muni told him, what you will do is that you will allow yourself to be the subject of charity. You will take up a spiritual life, and in this way you will be of benefit to yourself and to others. So the point here is that he undergoes 3 parivartanas, 3 transformations of the heart. The first is one of conscience, that he changes his killing business to a full killing business. It's not much of an incremental progress, but it's at least, less suffering is caused. But then he sees the future, and then with fear. So in the first one, a sense of compassion or a sense of giving up his pride causes him to be a proper hunter rather than a so-called expert hunter. The second change of heart comes from fear, deep fear, seeing his imminent future. At the moment of death, he'll be ripped apart by every animal that he's ever killed. And the third change of heart comes in because of the company of a saint. And of course, sometime later, Narada Muni returns, and he sees that Mrigari has become a wonderful Vaishnava. So the key word in all of these is change of conscience. Conscience. It means one has to be conscious in order to experience conscience. So then, I would say that, I have to be a good person. I'm not a good person. I have to be a good person. This is a very low level change of heart, isn't it? It's sort of even children can undergo this. Some people, of course, never undergo that change of heart. But the second level is where one realizes that I was a bad person, but now I'm a good person. But even as a good person, I will not be happy. I will not be able to get everything I want to satisfy my impulses. My impulses. I need food. That's the impulse. And I work hard or I steal food. I want to be famous, so I disregard all others and behave in a certain way in order to achieve fame. I need money, so I become ruthless, denying my family sometimes to get money. So even if I get what I want in this life, I will not be fulfilled. This is the thing, you may get what you want, but you won't be fulfilled. So what is that? That's also parivartana. I must change. Something's got to give. Something's got to go. I'm looking in the wrong direction. And we often find stories of rich people, famous people who they go from rich and successful to they just want to do something else with their lives. And it's sort of the beginning of self-realization. Because to come to the understanding that if I make others happy, I can be happier. That's a powerful realization. So in our scriptures, the good subject is a prostitute known as Pingala. And Pingala comes up in the conversation of Krishna to Uddhava. Krishna tells a story of 24 different, or a young man who claimed that he had 24 gurus. And one of them was a prostitute. And of course the young man was telling the king. He said, my guru is a prostitute. And the king said, well, what kind of guru can a prostitute be? And he said, no, please listen. I was waiting outside the temple, begging for alms. This prostitute was just nearby. She'd also been waiting for customers in the hot sun all day. No one had come, no one was interested. And I overheard her speaking out loud that what has this life benefited me? What sort of life am I having? Just waiting for customers outside a temple. I need to change my life and I need to change it right now. My suffering comes from my hopes in temporary things, she said. My suffering, that which is making me suffer, comes because I hope to get ultimate happiness from things which are temporary. And as everybody knows, or any sane person should know, you cannot get permanent happiness from something which is temporary. And everything that you aspire for that gratifies the senses, whether short-term or long-term, is temporary. So that happiness will come to an end at some time. So therefore she just gave it up and she walked away. And the young man said, from her I learned detachment. That detachment is the way of happiness. So it's a sort of an existential parivartana turnaround. So in this story of Pingala, there's no spiritual awakening, but she changes her life because she has the first of all spiritual realizations is that something's got to change. I'm looking in the wrong direction for happiness. So then we come to number 3. In my reckoning, it was number 3, and it's called Jnanodaya. Jnanodaya, or the awakening of spiritual happiness. All of this is the one word which goes through all of these things is something called vivek. Vivek. Viveka means discernment or discrimination. In other words, you're able to separate one thing from another. When you can separate one thing from another, this is the path of happiness and this is the path of unhappiness. If I turn down this path, I'll just be more depressed. If I turn down this path, this will help me. I've got to move away from being selfish to being selfless. This is viveka. So when spirituality comes, then that is the fruit of planting the seed of viveka. Now we hear it again in the story of Krishna to Uddhava, where the 24 gurus are being described, and it's the young man himself who has achieved this ultimate viveka by saying that, well, Krishna's describing his story, but first of all Krishna says that it's the guru, or the guru who provides viveka, or the guru by speaking Shastra. The Shastra gives you a worldview which is different from your own worldview, a perspective which you cannot have only with your eyes, only with your life experiences. You may not be able to get this higher viveka or discrimination. Without the guru speaking, for instance, Bhagavad Gita, you won't know that the soul is different from the body, etc. So Krishna says this viveka, this spiritual awakening, this jnanodaya, this rising in the heart of jnana, or true knowledge. Jnana means true knowledge. This comes first in the mind. The very beginning of it is in the mind. He says the mind is the first guru, because you look around yourself and you see other people are not happy. There's a way of happiness. I must take to the way of happiness. Life is crazy. There must be somebody sane. I've been looking in the wrong direction for happiness. I'm fed up. I'm very disappointed. Life is very disappointing. There must be more to life than this. All of these things. And I was speaking with a devotee, and he was saying that you speak to any devotee, they'll tell you that there's a moment in their life where they were looking for something, they may not have known what it was, and that something came to them in a very real way. So Krishna describes that by telling the story of this Brahmin, this Avadhuta Brahmin as he was called, who had 24 gurus. Krishna describes that as you are looking for the truth, or for higher knowledge, higher truth, the universe itself, nature itself, becomes your teacher. And the interesting thing about this is that spiritual awakening is achieved when we stop looking at the world as the source of happiness and start looking at the world as the source of knowledge. And when we have that knowledge come to us, we will be awakened from the dead sleep that we've been undergoing. So that spiritual awakening begins with the understanding that there is a higher reality. There's got to be a higher reality than this. Surely this isn't everything that there is. So when we think like that, then we are being taught by nature, and that comes to you by in the story that Krishna tells, it comes in the form of, for instance, the Brahmin says, I learned from the bear, I learned from the python, I learned from the mountain, I learned from the trees, I learned from the river, I learned from Pingala the prostitute. And he goes on and he describes the arrow maker and different accidental gurus, if you like. For us, I suppose it comes in the form of conversations that we have, books we read, TV programs we watch, everything. When we are searching for, ultimately we're searching for Krishna, but we don't know it. But we're looking for something more. And that comes to us in a variety of ways. So much and so often that we are pushed in the singular direction towards the ultimate, which is Shastra. So that is the beginning of spiritual awakening. So in that state, everything that you see, touch, taste becomes transparent to spiritual truth. Before, you couldn't see through it. You saw a tree or a rock, but now you see through it to a greater lesson. And the turning point in this stage of parivartana is that the world is no longer just an object. The world around me is a revelation. And that person begins to perceive transcendence everywhere. So the key word in this stage is vision, developing transcendental vision. Then Krishna goes on and he describes the next stage, what in my little summary here is the surrender stage, or you can say finding a spiritual teacher. Because Krishna says that these 24 gurus of nature are summed up by the person who is a surrendered soul to Krishna, who's actually knowledgeable of Shastra. Shastra is Krishna's message to humanity, and that comes through the mouth of the Guru. Why the Guru? Why not the printed book? Well, printed books we now have, but there's no substitute for hearing from someone who lives the scripture. And of course, the turning point for us that we hear about this is in Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna and Krishna have been friends for a long time. Krishna agrees to not fight, but to accompany Arjuna into battle. And on the day of the first battle of the war, Arjuna drops his bow and confesses that I'm in desperation, I don't know what to do. I'm so confused. And he breaks out into a sweat and he shakes and he's crying. And Krishna says, this is not like you. And Arjuna says the words that change the whole relationship between him and Krishna. They're friends, equals. But he says, Shishasteham shadimam tam prapannam. I surrender to you now as a student. Please become my teacher. Shishasteham. I'm your student, I'm your disciple. Disciple is another way of saying pupil. I'm your student, please teach me. And we know that this is a separate thing because Arjuna was already a moral person. He was already intelligent. He's already cultured. And he's already spiritually educated. So this turning point, this parivartana, is doesn't fall into the previous categories. This is a point in which the person thinks, now I'm seeking, I kind of know what I'm looking for, but I can't get there by myself. I cannot reach the goal alone. And that's where surrender to the Guru or finding a Guru comes in. So the key word is that we accept guidance. Are you humble enough to accept guidance? Have you reached that point in your life? Do you trust? So it's humility and trust. This is discipleship. So now the next section is where a person, after having been given guidance within the heart, there's a step where we actually surrender to Krishna. And that's after hearing about surrendering to Krishna from the Guru and the benefits and how easy it is if we just do it. But as I've said probably several times before, it's like trusting that a boat will get you across the river, knowing that boats generally take you across the river, knowing that if a boat has no leaks, you will not sink, you'll be safe. That's all intellectual. Stepping into the boat is the point of surrender. That's where you actually begin the journey across the river. And surrender to Krishna comes at the point where I understand that actually Krishna is the source of everything. He's the beginning and end of everything, and I belong to Krishna. My body belongs to Krishna, my mind, my soul, all belong to Krishna. So therefore, I should use them in his service. Bhagavan owns the soul, therefore is the full control of the soul, therefore I should allow myself to be fully directed by Krishna. This is called Sharanagati. I belong to him. So the best example of that is a great king called Bali Maharaj. King Bali was a great king who was conquering the gods, conquering the demons, held a very important position, if not the best position in the Vedic three worlds. And he was having a great fire sacrifice. These fire sacrifices that we do at initiation that goes back to the beginning of the universe, this type of practice has been going on, burning sticks and offering fruits and flowers into the flames. So when a king performs a sacrifice, a lot is sacrificed. It's not just in an hour ceremony, not even 2 or 3 hours, but a whole day, 2 days, a week. So much is burned. No, the gods themselves take these offerings in the form of prana. Prana is the inner essence of every object. So the prana is absorbed by the gods. So, king is performing this yajna, sacrifice. But before he does it, he makes generous gifts of land and various things to Brahmins. Brahmins traditionally have to live in poverty so that their philosophical and spiritual and intellectual clarity will not be coloured, so they live in poverty. And the relationship between a Brahmin and a king is that the Brahmins speak without reserve, without fear, speak very clearly to a king, even insulting the king if the king's done something wrong, and the king basically pays to be insulted. So at this sacrifice, this ceremony, all the Brahmins had been satisfied, and they were just about to begin the ceremony when a young boy comes. Not an ordinary boy, but the boy was a dwarf, very short in stature, and he came with an umbrella and short steps, little steps. And the king's guru, Shukracharya, he whispered in his ear. He said, "He's a Brahmin, but don't give him anything." "Why?" said the king. "Because he's Vishnu. He's Vishnu in disguise. Be very careful, this one. You know, we've heard about him. He tends to be rather greedy, and he takes everything." But Bali Maharaj was looking, and even though he'd been told that he was Vishnu, he said, "Yes, my child, what can I give you?" "Well, sir," said the boy, "I just want three steps of land, that's all I want. As many steps as I can take. Just give me those steps inland. So the king said, well, that's only about 6 foot square, or words to that effect, whatever the measurements were in those days. That's all I want, said the boy. So the king said, agreed, and he took his water pot, and he poured the water pot into his hand, and from his hand it fell on the floor. Once you say Om and pour water, then the deal is done. There can be no going back. And so at that point the boy began to grow, and he grew to be a 6 foot tall person. Then he grew to be an 18 foot tall person. Then he grew so the king could not see him anywhere. And ultimately they just saw the end of one of his toes. The king said, oh, I have given, he said. So the boy said, where shall I put my first step? So he stepped across the universe one way. Second step, he stepped across the universe the other way. The king realized that everything he'd ever achieved, everything he'd ever fought for in his long military campaigns was just taken by Vishnu, by this child who was Vishnu. Then he heard a booming voice, O king, where shall I place my third step? And the king said, well, I don't have anything else to give you, so you better put your third step on my head. And this abject surrender makes him a full symbol for the Vaishnavas, who laud him as one of the great Mahajans, or great persons, because this Sharanagati of Bali Maharaj, this Sharanam, taking shelter through surrendering everything, Atma Nikshepa, illustrates full surrender. Because he knows who Vamana is, he understands what the consequences are, but still he does it. So he loses his kingdom, he loses his prestige, he loses his freedom, he loses everything, yet he offers himself completely. So it's not merely a philosophical or intellectual adjustment or a belief system or a religion. It's a full offering of oneself, Atmanikshepa. So the key understanding at this stage is self-offering. So we've gone from conscience, awakening of spirituality, Vivek. We've gone to finding a guru. We've gone to beginning the spiritual path. We've gone to self-offering. And this key stage of Sharanagati is explained in a book known as the Lakshmi Tantra. And that is a book of wisdom spoken by Lakshmi herself, the wife of Vishnu or Narayan. And this Sharanagati is of 6 elements, which can be done singly, but often they come all together, and every Vaishnava should focus on these. And the verse that describes these is Anukulyasya Sankalpa Pratikulyasya Varjanam Rakshishyatiti Vishvaso Goptritve Varanam Tata Atma Nikshepa Karpanye Shad Vidya Sharanagati. So the 6-fold surrender consists of, you can take notes, number 1, accepting what is favorable to devotion. So I'm giving myself to God because I understand that everything good will come from God. So I'll accept whatever's favorable for that. And number 2, I'll reject everything unfavorable. Anything that holds me back in my spiritual life, get rid of it. Number 3, I'll have firm faith that the Lord will protect me. That's sort of a looking at the boat type stage. And then stepping into the boat is, I will accept the Lord as my maintainer. First thing, I have firm faith. Second thing, I accept him. Number 5, I offer myself completely to him. And number 6, I cultivate humility and a sense of dependence. Yeah, so that's the 6 elements of surrender. And I'll send you these notes as well. So the interesting one here is that having faith that Krishna will surely protect me. Because Krishna says at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, when he's encouraging Arjuna to perform that surrender, Sharanam, just surrender to me utterly, I'll protect you. So accepting that Krishna will surely protect me is not a belief that nothing unpleasant will happen. You'll still die. Krishna will not make you eternal. He may not even make the sun shine on your house every day. Your marigolds may not grow. They may be eaten by slugs. You may break a leg at some point, or some other less important bone. And therefore you may say, well, why didn't Krishna protect me? But this Krishna will surely protect me is the belief that whatever happens, I remain under the Lord's protection. The soul is protected. But just in connection with that, Prabhupada did say that even though Krishna protects the soul and not necessarily the body, at all times the body will be experiencing less and less and less karma, bad karma, as time goes on. Now, there are classic examples of this type of surrender. We have the story of Gajendra, the elephant king who struggled in the water, being gripped firmly by a crocodile's mouth, struggling for 1,000 years, eventually reaching the point where he said, I can't do this. I can't do this by myself. I must surrender everything. And in his last life as a human being, he'd learned some prayers, and in his elephant life he remembered them. And the famous picture, of course, is he reaches down and picks up a lotus flower and offers it to Vishnu. And Vishnu immediately comes to save him as he offers those prayers, accompanied by a flower. And the crocodile is dealt with, and we discover that the crocodile was also under a curse. The elephant was under a curse, and they two are reawakened to their former identities. Draupadi, the wife of the Pandavas, she was pulled from her inner chamber into the assembly room where all the warriors laughed at her plight because a gambling match was going on and she had been lost along with the entire kingdom. And they tried to strip her naked, and she cried out to Krishna, and Krishna manifests at her moment of surrender in a unlimited sari, which not only protected her but also showed everybody in the room that something mystical and supernatural was going on in reciprocation to these cries, these heartfelt cries that Krishna, please, Govinda, please protect me. And of course we have the story of Prahlad. And Prahlad is interesting, of course, because Lord Nrsimhadev came to protect him by bursting from the pillar, but until that point he'd been thrown off a cliff and poisoned and trampled by elephants, or these things had been attempted, but in each case he'd been saved because he was fully surrendered as a bhakta, a Mahabhagavata. So those are some examples of real faith that Krishna does protect us. And then the fourth element here, that I accept the Lord as my maintainer. And the devotee in that condition ceases to think that my security comes from my wealth, my position, my post, my company, my family, my government, or as Prabhupada said one time, my gun. Do not think that your gun will protect you. Do not think that your position in society will protect you. Do not think that your youthful body will protect you. That will all go. Ultimately, my life is maintained by Bhagavan. And the fifth, Atma Nikshepa, I offer myself completely, is the culmination. Not that Krishna belongs to me, but I belong to Krishna. And that's the mood of Bali Maharaj and Arjuna after the Gita, and the residents of Braja, the gopis of Vrindavan, and the gopas of Vrindavan, of course. And this idea, this last one, Karpanya, means that I should always be bathed in humility and the idea of utter dependence on Krishna. But it doesn't mean, we should be very careful that we don't misunderstand this to mean self-hatred or self-deprecation, or that humility doesn't mean humiliation. We do not become a doormat for other people. Rather, surrendering to God makes us incredibly strong, determined, fierce even. People will notice something different about us. So it's not that humility leads to disrespect. Please try and understand that, because sometimes we don't. But the thought is that without divine grace, I possess nothing of my own. Everything is here by the grace of Krishna. And that mood is seen in Kunti. Queen Kunti was the mother of the Pandavas, the mother of Arjuna. And although so many misfortunes had come upon that family, you read the Mahabharata and you think, as Balaram did one time when he was speaking to Krishna, he said, how is it that, you're protecting them, but they went through such a lot. Their house was burned, they were attacked so many times. How's that your protection? It was a very nice dialogue. But Kunti says that let these misfortunes come again and again, because every time they come, I just think of you and I feel protected by you. It's a very elevated state of surrender. And finally we have the example of Vibhishan. Vibhishan, and who was the brother of Ravana, who came to the point where I have a very bad brother. He has stolen the wife of Lord Ramachandra, Sita. Therefore, I can no longer stay in his company. I will go and make myself, my life, an offering to Ramachandra. So he went and surrendered to Ram. To which Ram utters a very famous verse, which he was speaking to his friends who were gathered, saying to him, don't accept Vibhishan's surrender. It's a trick, it's a ploy. He is the friend of your evil opponent, the brother of your opponent. Don't trust him. But Ram said famous words. He said, whoever even once surrenders unto me and says, I am yours, I grant fearlessness forever. This is my solemn vow. So we have that as Sharanagati. Then the final Parivartana is, well, there are many different divisions before you get to this, and we'll go into that at some later date. But this takes us from surrender to the awakening of prema, or divine love. So surrender is one thing. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that surrender that we've just been describing is the threshold or the doorway into the house of bhakti. It's the doorway of the house of bhakti. Prema is all about, I just love Krishna. I love Krishna for his own sake. And it's nicely illustrated, of course, by the life of Uddhava. Uddhava, like Arjuna, is a friend of Krishna for a very, very, very long time. Many years, more than 80 years. And he thinks that he knows Krishna. He's Krishna's friend and confidant, and sometimes philosopher, sometimes messenger. Sometimes he's riding into battle with him, and so many different things. But then Krishna sends him to the Vrindavan to meet the cowherd community that Krishna has not seen for a year or two. Krishna leaves as a young man. He never returns. He vows that he's going to return, but he never does. And when Uddhava encounters the Braja gopis, particularly the cowherd maidens, he experiences a different kind of love of Krishna that even he doesn't experience. So he prays that I shall be reborn as blade of grass in Vrindavan, that these great devotees who love Krishna even more than me will crush me with their feet. This is love. I no longer seek liberation, perfection, or even spiritual achievement. I only seek loving service to Krishna. So we've gone on 6 turning points. And really, spiritual life is a series of turning points in the right direction, isn't it? How many turning points are there? Well, there could be 6, there could be 9, there could be so many. If we see Rupa Goswami's analysis, it's 9 stages from faith to prema. If we see Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's schemata, then that 9 is divided up into another, well, at least 27 different stages. So if you like, you can analyze all those and see where you are. But I caution you that when you read Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's, you might become a little, shall we say, depressed at where we are on the journey. There's a long way to go. So Mrigari the hunter, I must stop doing wrong things, bad things to animals' conscience. Pingala, anything in this world cannot satisfy me. The Avaduta Brahmin, there is spiritual truth everywhere I look. Arjuna, I need a guru. Bali Maharaj, I give everything to God, I belong to God. And Uddhava, I love Krishna for his own sake. That's the progression. Then Rupa Goswami's analysis is that spiritual life is a series of parivartanas, series of progression of bhakti, beginning from sort of pre-bhakti through to the awakening of bhakti, through to the consolidation of bhakti, surrender, and all the way to ultimate bhakti. So we can have a look at that in the notes that I'll send out. Very good. So I thank you very much for listening, and hope to see you again on another talk. Hare Krishna. Very good. Thank you for listening to that one. It felt good to get that one out. Let's go for a few questions. Let's welcome those who've come. Uddhava Saka, loud and clear. We talked a lot about Uddhava. See how much I like Uddhava. Alex, Paul, Lisa, Elaine, Jane. Did we meet Jane? I forget whether I met Jane or not. Malini, Hare Krishna. Malini and Uddhava, I'm sure you're looking forward to the Ratha Yatra that's coming up in a few days' time. Is it this weekend? In Cambridge? Hema Krishna, thank you so much, Hema Krishna, for all your wonderful arrangements this weekend. This weekend I went to the Ahimsa Dairy Farm in Rutland, to Northampton, and Leicester, where I visited all the groups. I'm getting around, but Hema Krishna was really really kept me going. Thank you, Hema Krishna. We got Pete, we got Jaimani Jiva, well I know who that is. We got Aaron, Edward, got Jagannath, Mandy, Anapayani, Hello, Mandy. Nice to see you coming in. Dungati, Jai Chaitanya, Jai Vamanadev, says Pete. Katerina's looking forward to the notes. Yes. Any of you can have the notes, whether you're newly coming on to this session or not. This session happens every Monday at 7:30 UK time. I send out the notes of the session. Well, I have been. You can do that by just leaving me with your... You just ask to be put on the Wednesday Club. The Wednesday Club is what we call the people who get the notes. Satyabama, Alex. Jane Milne says, yes, I'm Highland Jane. Yeah, I met you in London, yeah. So did you just write to me? I got a letter from a Jane Mitter. Was that you? If not, then it's a different Jane. I shall have to ask for. Mark says, regarding people changing for the better and choosing spiritual life, I thought Krishna is more fortunate to discover Krishna consciousness when young. Hence the saying, it's harder to teach an old dog, but certainly people can change later in life, yeah. Well, I have experience, of course, that I know many devotees who come relatively later. And the reason for this is, well, it's looking at the boat and stepping into the boat. Some people are looking at the boat for 30 years, and so they come when they're 45. When they're 45, they step into the boat and they begin their journey, they sail away. And some people, it's different for them. I was personally very lucky to meet the devotees when I was 17. I was pretty much dragged, but I'm very thankful that someone was very forceful with me and dragged me. I think that some people come a lot later in life. My friends Kaustuba and Raghunath, they run the Wisdom of the Sages, and they're discovering that the average age of their many thousands of listeners is over 40. And this is because many people knew about yoga, bhakti, Krishna at different times in their youth, but they never stepped into that boat, and now they're really thinking we should change. And sometimes, of course, we have Hindus who grew up in India and they've been exposed to Krishna for a long time, but still they're making a parivartana. That now I'm actually going to do something about my previous understanding of Krishna. Thank you for that clarification, Jane. Next question. Are you Jayananda's mum? That's my question. So, Marianne Stewart says, 19th of July is Cambridge Rath Yatra. So, if you are in the Cambridge area, please do go. It's a very wonderful festival, and there is nice food, and even better, there's wonderful devotees to make friendship with, meet, and see if you like them. If you don't like them, you don't get involved. But if you do like them, and I know that you will, then you can get involved. Any other questions? If not, then we're coming up to full time. Nothing more? All right. Thank you so much for coming on for this hour. I know it's really a discipline thing because, you know, it's warm outside and there's a lot of things you could be doing, but you gave it all up. You performed full surrender and you took shelter. So I'm very, very thankful. So, Hare Krishna and good night.